The Sarasota County Bar Association is a proud partner in bringing you law in Sarasota. With voluntary membership of over 1,000 lawyers and judges, the Sarasota County Bar Association serves its members and your community by advancing legal professionalism, promoting practice development, and fostering fellowship. Visit www.sarasotabar.com for more information and to use the online directory to find an attorney.
This program is brought to you by a grant from the Community Foundation of Sarasota County and the Sarasota County Bar Association. The Education Channel produces the program and broadcasts from its state-of-the-art campus on Beneva Road. They make this program possible.
Welcome to Law in Sarasota. I'm Erika Quartermaine and I'm a county judge. Thank you to the Community Foundation for partnering with the Sarasota Bar Association to bring this production to the public. The purpose of our program is to capture the history of Sarasota and its legal profession, as well as educate the viewers. Today, we have a great program with a phenomenal guest, Scott Westheimer. So, I'm going to do a little introduction of Mr. Westheimer. He's a trial lawyer and a commercial litigator in Sarasota. He was raised primarily in Sarasota. He graduated from the University of Florida with high honors in 1993 and from the University of Florida College of Law with high honors as a member of the Order of the Coif in 1996. He has been practicing for 26 years at Seipert Meshad. He is an AV-rated attorney and has been named numerous times as a Florida super lawyer and among Florida's illegal elite by the Florida Magazine. He served his local bar, the Sarasota County Bar Association, as president of its Young Lawyers Division and ultimately of the bar itself for Sarasota. He was then elected to the Florida Bar of Board of Governors, where he served 10 years before being elected as the 75th president of the Florida Bar. During his time on the Board of Governors, Scott pioneered and developed many of the bar's tangible tools and resources that lawyers rely on daily in their practice, including the complete rebuild of the Florida Bar's website, and he spearheaded and led the team that created LegalFuel.com. During his presidency, the Florida Bar was at the cutting edge of technology by creating the first standing committee on cybersecurity and privacy law in the country, the special committee on artificial intelligence, which developed rule revisions, and the first ethics opinion on AI in the country. And the Florida Bar was the first bar association to offer free trust accounting software with NOTA. In 2024, he received VLEX's annual Fast Case 50 Award, which highlights exceptional contributions of the top 50 most courageous innovators, techies, visionaries, and leader in the legal industry. It's a big deal. You're serving on the University of Florida Law Center Association, and you've been an adjunct professor at the University of College of Law, and it is an absolute treat to have you here and to have had you represent our community at the Florida Bar.
Thank you, Judge. That was barely embarrassing. Thank you very much.
No, it's so wonderful, especially because you grew up here like I did. So I would like to first start out by you maybe telling us a little bit about your youth here in Sarasota.
Sure. I grew up here. My family moved down when I was in third grade, and we loved it. From Baltimore, Maryland, went to Philippi Shores Elementary School, Brookside Middle School, Riverview High School. Grew up on Siesta Key, was kind of a key kid. Grew up playing sports, playing soccer, eventually started playing volleyball, and just loved Sarasota. Loved the beach, loved the water, loved the people. So it's been my home. It was an easy choice when we decided, where I was going to come back after school.
So you hung out at the beach, huh? At Siesta?
Hung out at the beach, very much.
At the pier there on the beach part?
We were public beach kids.
Oh,
we were
yeah.
under the old tree at the volleyball court before they upgraded things.
Yeah.
We made it the #1 beach in the country. So
I know those are good days. It's still good days.
Yes.
So you have a great memory of your childhood, great experience here, and then you ultimately returned here for your career. So tell me what brought you back.
It's home. It's one of those places that unless someone comes and visits, they don't really understand how special it is. Just from the people, how friendly they are, to the sense of community. Even though we're becoming a bigger and bigger city, it still feels like a small town. And I just had roots here, always came back over the summers. I knew I wanted to live here, raise my family here. It's just always been home.
So you applied to Cypress Meshad as your first job?
I mean, I bussed tables and waited tables at El Adobe through school, and then I needed to make a little more money actually to get a job. And I clerked there 2 years during law school. So I do kind of double duty, and then I clerked at Cypress Meshad for 2 years. When I graduated law school, wasn't exactly sure what I was going to do. Came back. Teresa Jones, one of our partners, said, you never left, and we just had to hire you. So I've been there ever since for, I don't even know, 27 years, quite a bit.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
That's a testament to what you all do at your firm.
Thank you.
Because I know you're not the only one. So walk us through how you became so involved with the Bar Association, both locally and on the statewide level.
Sure. I think I was voluntold to get involved at the very beginning. Our firm always says get involved with the community in some way or the other in our local bar. So I, basically was voluntold by Jan Young, the old executive director of the Sarasota County Bar, to get involved. I think I did like a Christmas in July back then, was involved, loved it. Loved how you can help kids, how you can help the profession, enhance what we do as lawyers. Eventually became Young Lawyers Division president in Sarasota, and then president. Then I thought I was done, and John Patterson and Kim Ball, two local attorneys, sort of recruited me to run for our Board of Governors. And the way it works for our state, the Florida Bar is a branch of the Supreme Court, but it's governed by a Board of Governors like, a Board of Directors. And each circuit has representation based on the number of lawyers. So we're in the 12th Circuit, and we're a small circuit, but Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto has one seat. And I decided to put my name in for the seat, and luckily I think I had the first contested election in 20 years for our circuit, had to run. And then I took the seat representing our circuit at the Board of Governors for the Florida Bar.
And you did that for 10 years on the Board of Governors.
Did for 10 years, which is also a little bit abnormal. We're a small circuit. We usually rotate off the seat somewhat quickly. I was lucky. I don't know if it was right place, right time. Everything I got involved with, I was able to move up, chair different committees. Eventually was on the executive committee, was appointed to chair other committees, and eventually was on the executive committee for 5 years, and then decided to run for president.
So what's the role of a member of the Board of Governors?
Sure.
What would you do just in that position?
It's, numerous things. We're the third largest bar in the country, and we're mandatory. So it's not a union. You don't have a choice. Everybody who becomes a lawyer in Florida, once they pass the bar, they become a member of the mandatory bar, which is the Florida Bar. So the number one thing that the board does and the Board of Governors do is regulation and discipline. So we have the rules regulating the Florida Bar. All lawyers must comply with those. As the Board of Governors member, your most important thing to do is appoint grievance committees, which are our local, almost like grand juries at the grievance level. They're 1/3 of the committee is made up from public members. The rest are lawyers you appoint. You oversee those committees. You deal with discipline. You make decisions on discipline cases, decide whether to appeal cases or not appeal cases to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court's the final arbiter. So you also help in the rulemaking process. You deal with policy for the Florida Bar. You're making decisions on what the bar is going to do, whether it be per member benefits, whether it be with, changing rules regulating the bar. It really runs the gamut.
Wow, that's a big responsibility. And you took it on for 10 years, so thank you. That's really important. All right, so you said you served on some other types of committees and then sort of worked your way up the executive committee. So what other roles did you have in the executive committee?
I chaired the communications department. That's when we rebuilt the website. I was the chair of what we call the disciplinary review committee, which is the largest committee, and that's dealing with discipline. And it's probably a 2-hour talk just on the process. But one of the things the disciplinary review committee does is it reviews decisions from the local grievance committees. It makes decisions on whether we appeal cases, what local Board of Governors decisions they make overseeing these grievance committees. And I chaired that committee. I also was chair of what we call our program evaluation committee, which looks at all the programs and sections of the bar, makes decisions on new programming, changes in programs, looking at old programs and see how good they are. So those are the ones that I did. I chaired communications twice, to the Disciplinary Review Committee, and then also the Program Evaluation Committee.
And the program evaluation is educational programs and conventions and seminars?
No, it's Program Evaluation Committee looks at every program the bar has. So if a section wants to change its bylaws, let's say you're the business law section of the Florida Bar, which is a voluntary part of the bar. If they want to change their bylaws, the Program Evaluation Committee looks at it. If you want to start a new program like the AI Committee, you have to take it to the Program Evaluation Committee. Anything that's a new program that's in front of the bar, it has to go there. Or if they want to change a program, or for programs that have been there for a while, we review those to see if we should keep them going. How do we modify those? How do we improve those? So that's one of the probably the most important committees on the bar as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So then what year is it when you decide you're going to put your name in for president?
It's a blur. That's a good question. It's, the bar year is different. It's fiscal year. So I was just bar president in 23, 24. So I think around 2021, because the way we get elected, you're elected as president-elect.
Okay.
So I was president-elect 21, 22, president 23, 24, ran for president 2021. 21, 22 in that time frame, which is right around when COVID started. So that's why it's a little bit of blur, the pre-COVID, post-COVID, what was on Zoom, what wasn't. But in that time frame, from 20 to 22 is when I made the decision to run.
So once you made the decision, what was involved in your campaign?
It's actually a democratic process for all lawyers in the state that are in good standing. They get to vote, and it's a vote. So we're a small circuit. We have one representative. A lot of the bigger circuits, like the 17th, the 11th, the other coast, they have more attorneys, they have more representatives, and if you decide to run, you have to go campaign, just like a regular election. So I campaigned. I went to bar associations and met with lawyers from the Panhandle to Key West to get elected.
That is a lot of traveling and a lot of lawyers. I mean, the membership of the bar is how many?
112,000, give or take. Yeah.
And I know they're not all active, but still, that is an enormous number of lawyers to meet.
It is.
And a lot of time away. So, and you had a contested election.
I did. Someone from Fort Lauderdale ran, so it's the first time someone from our circuits run for president and won, the presidency.
Yeah, and we're from a smaller circuit versus South Florida. There's just, like you say, so many people there.
There are.
So that must have been a pretty cool feeling when you found out you prevailed.
It was exhausting. It was a pretty cool feeling. It was nice. I mean, our circuit, I truly believe, and I'm 100% biased, that we have the best circuit that's out there. I couldn't say that when I was president. I can say it now.
Yes.
But to me, to be able to have someone from our circuit represent all the attorneys in the state, to do what we do, on the board, to represent us in front of the Supreme Court, and to show, how we are professional here and kind of the way we, interact with other attorneys, what we do. It was important. It was important to represent our circuit. So it was an exciting feeling.
Yeah, I bet it was exciting. And to lead in the organization of over 100,000 people with such important work to be done and changes all the time, it's an amazing accomplishment.
Thank you.
So now you know you prevailed, you're going into this year, you're already familiar with the major issues of the bar.
Right.
What is on your mind as a priority?
It's funny because what's on your mind may not have anything to do with what you're actually going to deal with. You're president-elect, so you kind of see what you're dealing with, what you're going to have to either tackle or accomplish, even if it's not on your priorities. I always knew we had to deal with cybersecurity and privacy law. There's some experts in the field that came to me and said, this is something all lawyers are going to have to deal with. It's something you can't ignore. AI, artificial intelligence, generative AI, you can't go anywhere without looking at it. I knew we had to start quickly on that. We had to deal with circuit consolidation, which I never planned to deal with. The new IOTA rule, which came out from the Supreme Court, we also had to deal with. So lots of different things that you never really think about, then things you plan about, then they all hit at the same time.
Right, and I know that circuit consolidation was a lot of time and a lot of coordinated efforts. There was a statewide committee of the judiciary and state attorneys, some other folks. I'm not sure if you sat on that one, but I know you were very involved, probably other committees. If you could just tell the viewers what that was, how it happened, and just a summary of...
Sure, and I probably won't get the exact dates right, how it happened. It didn't come from the Florida Supreme Court. It didn't come from the Florida Bar. It came from the House of Representatives. It was Speaker Renner wanted the Supreme Court to look at whether we should consolidate our circuits. So we have 20 judicial circuits, and the idea was to form I guess, super circuits, where you had just a handful of big circuits. The question was, would it, help the economies of justice? Would it help people have better, a better ability to be in front of the court system? Would it make the court system more efficient? Were the reasons behind it? So the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Muniz, set up a Judicial Circuit Assessment Committee to look at that.
And were you on that one?
I was on. 2 of our Board of Governors members were on that. Laird Lyle and Braxton Gillum were on that. A lot of public defenders. Our Chief Judge Moreland was on that.
Yes.
And they set up subcommittees, and they really, they looked at some really big issues on whether it would be helpful to the circuits or not. And obviously, from a smaller circuit, you are concerned whether you get, engulfed by a big circuit like the 13th. As great as that circuit is, what's special about our circuit is the fact that we have judges that live in our circuit that are actually making decisions on cases for our public, which is, always a big thing. And is it more economic to have a state attorney in Tampa governing what's happening down here in Sarasota, or a public defender? And those are the issues that they looked at. As bar president, we're still a branch of the court. We had to sort of wait and see how things shook out. Eventually, we decided to set up our committee, look at it as well, and give a recommendation.
And what was the recommendation?
Our recommendation to the Judicial Circuit Assessment Committee was that consolidation wouldn't help the public. It wouldn't make the court system more efficient. There wasn't evidence to show consolidating circuits would do any good when you looked at all the analysis. And even from the opinions that we got, the public, I think there were surveys out. Everyone who was either polled or was surveyed about it, no one really had a lot of good reasons why we should do it. I think overwhelmingly the public didn't want it either. So eventually, the Judicial Circuit Assessment Committee, their recommendation was to not consolidate.
And they made that recommendation to the Supreme Court.
To the Florida Supreme Court.
Who then imparted that information
Yes.
accordingly. Okay.
And that's the end. But that's one of those where you have no idea that's going to happen. You're plugging along, you think you're doing everything great, and you get a big curveball, and all of a sudden you have to drop everything to look at it.
Yeah, people were very interested in that issue. And although it didn't happen, do you think there was anything particularly educational or helpful that came out of that process?
I always think that when you have anything that pops up like that and you have a process, if you can glean anything from it, it's helpful. And just to go through the process and see, I still think we have the best judicial and legal system in the world. To see that the way we have it set up is efficient. There's always things you can do to fix things, 100%. I think there were some ideas that came out of that may help efficiencies, but I think the big picture was having the circuits the way they are, having the local representation, having a public defender and state attorney that live in the circuit, having circuit judges that live in the circuit. Those are all important things to us. And I think it's always a good exercise to review. It's always good to have new ideas, but I think they came up with the right decision.
So you are really a pioneer in artificial intelligence when it comes to lawyers. When was the first time you heard about artificial intelligence?
I don't know, pioneer. I mean, I'm not even that techie, but I guess you get what you get. It's something we had heard about. I mean, and AI was way back when. And I mean, when you're dealing with Alexa or anything else, it's AI. But we started to see more and more of it when you're dealing with self-represented litigants. They're using AI to draft pleadings. The more and more we saw it, it's something that, I'd say 3 or 4 years ago, it started to pop up where you're having AI draft legal pleadings. You're having AI take tests for people. And again, till it became really prevalent, which was a few years ago, it was something that was just kind of neat to look at and think about. But then we're seeing in other circuits where people are having issues where they're using ChatGPT to do research and draft motions, and the case law is not correct. It's an hallucination effect. That's when I kind of decided we need to be at the forefront of it. If there's no regulations out there, if there's nothing there to teach our attorneys, we need to educate our lawyers on what they're allowed to do and not do. And the nice thing about our rules regulating the Florida bar, they're common sense, they're ethical rules, but they apply. You don't have to change them every 5 minutes. Just with new technology, you have to make sure people understand how our rules apply with the technology.
Right. So what were the most important findings or measurables that you were able to accomplish with AI?
I mean, the measurables are, we modified comments to the rules regulating the Florida bar to educate lawyers that the Supreme Court approved. I mean, that's an easy, tangible. We had the first ethics opinion in the country giving an opinion to attorneys on how they can use it, covering some of the big issues. One, you use AI for something, you use ChatGPT. great. If it takes half a second, you can't bill a client, obviously, for 10 minutes or for 4 hours for something that takes less than a second.
Right.
ChatGPT and some of these open sources, if you plug in confidential information as a lawyer, it's out there. So if I type in a search and do any information about a client, it's out and it will pop out in a different search. And you're violating the rules against, violating confidentiality. Also, a lot of folks, it's an amazing tool. ChatGPT and some of the things that are now closed source for the law, they're great tools, but you have to check them. There's a case in New York where, in a bankruptcy case, an attorney used ChatGPT, got cases right on point. They were brilliant. I know the public looks at this, so I won't get too legal, but they were amazing. They file it. They didn't look to see if the cases were valid. They never checked the sites. The judge in the opposing side said, I'm shocked all these cases are out there against us. They went to look at the cases, and it's not like the cases said something different. They just weren't even cases.
Oh, my goodness.
Jones v. Smith was cited. There was no Jones v. Smith. So, of course, you have an ethical duty to file something in the court system that's not a misrepresentation, that's valid, that, you're disclosing to the court, what the cases say. They didn't do that. So that was another takeaway, which is it's perfectly fine to use, but make sure you're checking the work to make sure it's a valid result, because there are hallucinations. All ChatGPT is, I think it's Bing searches up in, it's what you can find in Bing.
Right.
And any prior searches till 2022, I believe. So that's your database.
Synthesized.
Right.
Yeah.
Now there's companies like Westlaw and other companies that are doing a great job of getting things together where they have closed universes, they're protected, they're just legal resources, but those are pay sites.
So it's December of 2024, and from my perspective, you are a pioneer, even though you're not techie. You've thought about these things. You've really thought through the implications ethically, practically, for the public, right? And that is a very complicated analysis, not in just the legal profession, but across every profession. So here we are, and in this moment, like NVIDIA stock is going crazy, right? What is the future for the bar?
I mean, I think that's always the struggle, which is how do you use technology to better serve your clients and the public, to protect the public, but also to be as efficient as you can and to be on the cutting edge and keep what makes us special, which is the professionalism, the personal touch. I mean, there's so much that's Zoom now, people are texting, it's emailing. You lose the professional touch and the professionalism that makes us different than what other people do. So we need to keep the professionalism under the rules regulating the Florida bar while being on the cutting edge of the technology. And I think that to me is always the struggle, which is lawyers need to understand how to use it. They need not to be afraid of it, but they also need to make sure they don't lose what makes us a profession. And to me, that's always a struggle, whether it's with AI. We have trust accounting software for lawyers now to make things easier, dealing with cybersecurity, which we could talk about. I mean, if you're not doing the things you need to do, you're not properly serving your client and you're not protecting the public.
Right. I mean, it used to be you open up a bank account, you follow some rules. I mean, how has that changed for trust accounts?
I mean, we've always had rules that are hyper technical, but they should be. We're one of the few professions we're the only profession that has trust accounts. We hold money in escrow, and we have very strict rules on what we're allowed to do and not do because we're holding other people's money. So those rules are hyper technical, but lawyers aren't accountants, so there was no tool out there to really help them out. So we worked with a software company, worked with a bank. We put together a free piece of software for Florida lawyers called NODA, where you can use that software and it complies with all the trust accounting rules.
Oh, wow.
So that was something we gave all of our members for free if they want to sign up. Integrates with their bank. They can use it as a standalone.
No excuses anymore.
Well, no excuses. I mean, again, if you put the info in wrong, an incorrect way, there's always issues. But if you're doing things the right way, if you're trying, it's very hard to mess up if you're using the software. It's not going to stop theft, which is such a small percentage of what occurs. But if you're really trying to comply with the bar rules, which everyone is supposed to, it makes it that much easier.
So what were some of the efforts of during your presidency in terms of lawyer regulation and discipline? Because I know that you teach a class at the University of Florida on lawyer discipline. It's obviously been something you've really contemplated for a long time. What were the specific efforts during or around your presidency?
I mean, people don't realize it. Like I said, we're a branch of the Supreme Court. The number one goal the Florida bar has is to protect the public and to regulate lawyers. And so you have to make sure lawyers are complying with the rules. I've always looked at it as, what can we do to give lawyers tools so they comply with the rules? So, I mean, the number one thing was doing that software, trusting counting violations, even though they may be technical, are usually a top 5 violation for lawyers. So that was the number one thing. Like, we wanted to put something together that was free for lawyers. If they used it, it'd be very simple to use. They could try to do that to stay away from violations, which protects the public. We tried to make education, even more important, to let lawyers know the things we see for violations, how they can stay out of trouble. Cybersecurity is an area we saw that lawyers can have all sorts of possible rule violations if they're not doing the right things, to have some sort of protections for client data, emails, things like that. So we created a cybersecurity and privacy law committee that came up with recommendations and is looking at trying to maybe get an ethics opinion as well. And then AI was the next one we saw. What can we do to give educational lawyers so they don't violate the rules?
All right, I know a lot of people ask you this question about reciprocity.
Okay.
Is that ever going to materialize? Has there been a discussion recently? Anything about reciprocity we should know?
Not on my watch, no. It's something years ago when Ray Abedin was president, something he wanted everyone to look at. We looked at it. It's not something I see coming in the near future. And I think if you look at the courts, always, at least when I look at this, and I'm not attached with the bar anymore, I'm a free agent, I'm not involved. You're looking to protect the public, and if you have reciprocity, what type of guidelines do you have or rules to make sure lawyers coming in know how to practice Florida law? I mean, we have a stringent bar exam. You have to make sure you pass that. We have the rules regulating the Florida bar. We have an ethics component of the bar exam. If everyone's allowed to come down and practice in Florida, what do we do to ensure the public is protected, that these individuals are complying with our rules, and that they have enough of a background, a background and a way to be able to practice Florida law ethically and competently?
Well, I think that's a fair statement. I know we have one of the harder bar exams. So, if you were to speak to a group of young lawyers, and I'm sure you've done this quite a bit. A
couple times.
What would you tell them about getting involved with the bar, achieving the greatest level of happiness and success in their career, however they define success, and anything else?
One, get involved. Always get involved. It doesn't matter how, but get involved, whether it's with a local bar, a specialty bar, a state bar. Get mentors. Work with others. That's a great way to market, but it's a great way to learn. The number one thing I always tell young lawyers is you're a person first. When I first started, we had jokes in my office where I wouldn't leave the office before the senior partner did. If I walked out my office, he was there, I'd boogie back in. I'd wait till he was done. But you have to, quality of life's the most important thing. You're a person first. If you break down as a person, you don't take care of yourself, it doesn't matter how good of a lawyer you are. And I think you have to be able to have health and wellness and be able to deal with the stresses that we have as a profession first before you can tackle some of the other things. So I always tell people, get your schedule, take care of yourself, get health and wellness somewhere in your daily routine, because what we do is stressful enough, you got to take care of yourself.
And I think you're right, finding a mentor and a group is part of that, because it's someone to talk to and support you and support the other person. And that's been a phenomenal part of my career, is my mentors and my mentees. So I've enjoyed that in the groups I've been involved with.
That's great. And you can have more than one mentor. I mean,
right.
I had you got a mentor, whether it's bar work, you can have a mentor when it comes to actually the type of work you do. Mentor if you're a managing partner. And I think a lot of attorneys lose who they are. So I always also say, be yourself. You may see what a lawyer does on TV, and that's a great way to cross-examine. That's just not me. I'm not a bang on the table type person. I'm different when I'm in court than others. Some people do a great job with their personality in court. I have my own style. If you try to be something you're not, it's just hard to do that for your entire legal career.
So when I found out you were running, I was so excited. And then when you became our bar president, I was beyond thrilled.
Thank you.
You represented us so well in so many ways over the years. And I think that you are going to be a source of inspiration for a lot of our young lawyers in this circuit. I'm grateful for your time today. And I want to thank you for all your service.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for doing the show. It's amazing.
All right.
Thanks.
Thanks. Yeah. We want to thank all of the viewers for joining us in this very special episode celebrating one of our very own who rose to the top of the Bar Association and represented us so well. Thank you and have a great day.
For more than 40 years, the Community Foundation of Sarasota County has partnered with estate planning attorneys and their clients to unlock possibilities for everyone who calls our region home. Our motto, Be the One, reflects our deeply held belief that anyone can be a philanthropist and give back to our community regardless of means. Visit www.cfsarasota.org or call 941-955-3000 for more information.